Hey folks, we're gonna go explore some trails and just kind of see what we find. I'm not actually going after any specific plant. We're just gonna see who's up there, and I just need out of the house for a moment. I don't know about you. So I thought, we'd do that. So this is our current view. Which actually, that was just a bunch of pine trees. It is nicer, but so we're just gonna keep on heading up there. It's a 20-minute, 30-minute drive from where we're going. I need you to know that my windshield will never be clean. This truck will always look dusty because it's, farm, back road, everything we do truck. This is my favorite house in the whole world coming up here. Can't even see it, it's so tucked away. I grew up on this river, up in this stretch right here. This is where everybody, ran to do things we shouldn't have been doing, parties and stuff like that, camping and bunnies are out. Not today. This is probably my second favorite house. Not that you could see much of it. Finally off the pavement. They blew that up like crazy a while ago after a flood, because they knew it was going to collapse or something. There's all types of stuff creeping in and growing there now. Where we're headed is a big east running canyon, so it's it doesn't get the best light, and so stuff that grows here can be kind of temperate or not. But it just depends on how wide the canyon is, you know, and how much sun can get in. Cherry trees are blooming. Those are those pie cherries though. They are sour. Sour, sour, sour. Made it. He's over there sneezing. The pollen's been pretty brutal this year. And look, I already found, straight out the truck, we got ourselves some purple dead nettle here. She's definitely a little past her prime, but she's just hanging out by this impromptu fire pit. Almost said a wood stove, because that's how fried my brain is these days. Ah. This should help. So we're gonna go up that way, and then actually I'm gonna do this thing where I give the camera to my husband and put on a microphone so y'all can hear me. All right, we're gonna go up this trail. And in theory, even with me out, without me looking at the camera, you should be able to hear me. That's a cherry tree. There's a cherry tree right here. Cleavers, blackberries. Cherry tree. But usually they're pie cherries, so you can eat them and you can cook with them. It's just like my grandma used to say, it's like 1 cup of sugar for every 1 cup of pie cherries. You know. But we have a lot of like wild fruit around here, even though we're in Northeast Oregon, because we're where like the Whitman homestead was, and he was like obsessed with fruit trees, you know. And even though, you know, his whole family got killed or whatever, those you know, the natives came because they ate smallpox type stuff, but they did away with him, but the fruit trees spread everywhere. The animals spread them everywhere. So they're all over. You could be at like 8,000 feet elevation and come across a pear tree. You know, it's crazy. I'm not sure what we'll find up here, but we'll have a look-see. Look at the work those woodpeckers did the whole way up. They've got themselves some nice little homes built there. I don't know if they use them. I bet other birds do. But doesn't seem to be any bugs left in that tree. I think somebody stole a big old wood mushroom from there. All right, you can see where they ripped it off, huh? Looks like it. They come and take them, you know, those conch mushrooms, to do art on them or just to take them. But it's kind of sad because they take forever to grow. I mean, forever. They have some medicinal values, a lot like reishi. They're in the same family. There's tons of like this is all super hyper invasive Himalayan blackberry right here. These are service berries. Snowbush coming up next to her too. There's a bunch of horsetail over there in the pond. Cattail too. But if you try to walk on any of that, you're gonna sink down in pretty good. Plenty of dandelions. Here's all the horsetail on this side too. Horsetail's pretty good. This is about the time of year you wouldn't want to get her much past here for like using internally, right? Because the older horsetail gets, the more silica compounds or content she gets from the soil, and then that can be a little hard on your kidneys, right? But what's funny is when you get her really young like this, like especially these ones down here, when you get her really young like this, she's actually good for kidney function. But even when they're older, you can harvest them and make like a water-based infusion or even an oil-based infusion for your hair. She's pretty fantastic for strengthening hair just because she's got all that silica in her. Right about now, people are probably freaking out in my comment section about ticks and wearing a dress. I am wearing normal shoes today, but I want you to know it's not because you have concerns over me wearing sandals. Not in the least. I thought it was going to be colder up here, but I'm actually kind of regretting not wearing my sandals. These are still zero drop shoes though. This is one of our native honeysuckles right here. I don't really do much with her, honestly, but she's beautiful. We don't really have a whole lot of it up here. It's way more prevalent in like lower southern states. Some narrow leaf plantain. You can always tell by her ribs and such. Honestly, I just needed to get out of the house. So we got out of the house. You don't always have to have a reason. I think people get stuck in that, like especially if like their primary reason of like being in the woods or going into nature, did you hear that? Is to I'm freaking people out with every one of these videos. You should be aware of your surroundings when you're in nature, but their primary is like to go get something. And so they often like end up having like this empty basket syndrome thing where if they haven't gathered something in their mind, they've failed. But you should also practice just going to nature without expecting anything back other than just like the existence of being in nature, right? And you get a lot back just from being out here, you know, but maybe we'll come across something that we'll gather, maybe we won't. Maybe we just, you know, got outside and off of our screens for a day, so that's always good too. I think it's a tree. I think that was a tree moaning. It's kind of windy out. It's like a creepy murderous tree. In every video, it's gonna be like, what is that? Yeah, it's that tree right there. Oh, she's got a double top, so prone to break. Here's a little second-year mullein. I don't know how tall she'll get this year, but you can see she's getting ready to shoot up a bloom stalk here. Oh, look at the cleavers. I might, in fact, come back for her. You know, people are gonna be like, you're on a trail. Sure am, sure am. But, you know, consider where your trail is, how remote it is, how used it is, how maintained it is. Not every trail is going to be as contaminated as the next, right? And so, you know, at some point a dog might have peed along somewhere here, but I'm not that worried about it unless I'm right by it, you know, like a little ways doesn't hurt nothing. But, you know, at your own risk, where you're at, use nuances for your area. She came down. Goes right into that marsh over there. This is Sitka alder. We mainly have like pine, spruce, poplar here. We don't have a whole lot of hardwoods. Tamarack, which actually is not a pine at all. But that's like our hardest firewood we have. But we have Sitka alders, and they're a harder wood, but they're small. Let's hope the mic's working and you can hear me from all the way over there. It's supposed to be 850 feet. Hey, look. Some wild strawberry. She's all over up here, but she's starting to bloom, which tells me that it's not going to snow up here anymore. Oh, it goes a secret little patch up into that cave up in there. Little alpine strawberries. They don't get very big, but they're a nice little treat. So this is a big Sitka alder, and you can see your little cones. I've always wanted to make like jewelry out of them. Maybe if he zooms in over here on the dried cones, you might be able to see them. Maybe. I can't, I'm too short to reach them. Sometimes you can find them on the ground. I always end up with like pockets full of them with grand intentions of doing things that I never really end up doing. But I always thought you could make them into jewelry somehow, you know? Pockets full of stuff with grand intentions is probably a a good name for my reality. I got things in my pockets right now. This dress has pockets. Secret things. You don't get to see them. Here comes the water. plenty of usnea around here too. We're pretty low elevation, but the air is nice and clean up here, so you can see the usnea coming in on here, although she likes the spruce more. Speaking of, see that huge spruce right there? She's dead, but she's got all sorts of mushrooms coming out of her. You can't usually eat mushrooms, or there usually aren't mushrooms you can use that grow on spruce in particular. She's too acidic for most stuff. We don't have the hardwoods around here like I talked about earlier, which means we don't get a lot of the really cool edible mushrooms that some people do. We get plenty of morels and such. But we do get things that try to lure you into your death, such as these trees right here. He's gonna catch up with me. So there's some dead Sitka alder in the creek there, and you can see she's covered with turkey-tailed mushrooms. But that's a hard get. Down the whole side here too. They look like they're past their prime anyhow. That whole ass tree right there, all the way down. There was a major flood here about 5 years ago, and you can see it rerouted, but a lot of the trees just don't care. They're still just existing in this. This isn't even the river, this is a creek. The river's actually over there. Hey, little currant bush. See, these are our native black currants. And those pretty little blooms right there will turn into sour little berries covered in hairs. But no, you can use them still. It's a pretty big bush actually right there. Little baby hawthorn tree. That's who she is. She's a black hawthorn. We have the red hawthorns around here too, but natively we have the black hawthorns, which is who she is. This entire tree actually right over there. You can use them. You can use her just the same as any hawthorn. But her berries, I have a video on it, but the black hawthorn berries, they don't hold into the fall like the red hawthorn do, so you actually have to pick them around August or they get, past their prime. Wondering when we were going to come across her. Some more Oregon grape. She's already even past bloom here. See her little berries? Well, you can still see some bloom there, but she's coming into her berries. You can harvest the blooms in early spring to make a vinegar too, but I like to wait until the fall when her berries are ripe. Well, damn. At some point there was oyster mushrooms, which is kind of interesting because that's not a poplar. Bunch more currants right over in there. Lots of service berries. Service berries are tasty, but you can't really, you gotta just kind of eat them on the trail because the service berries, once you pick them, they go to mush so fast. If you put them in like a bucket or a bag, they'll just be disintegrated by the time you eat them. This is one of the places that flood was so bad, it just like ripped down off the mountain. Look at her, all proud. This Oregon grape. She has decided that she is still blooming. You know, so there's different types of Oregon grape. This is our native variety that doesn't get really tall. These ones, you would dig up their roots. The bigger ones that people use for ornamental, usually they're just as fine, but usually with those ones you want to scrape off their bark for the Burbank content. Let me see if I can show you what that looks like with her. Maybe I can get to the yellow. She's like, no, you're not going to get to the yellow. Yeah, here, let me see that. This is the content that we're after. Let me see how close I can get. See how yellow that is? Right underneath of there? That's the compound that you're after. So it's in the bark as well. And what's funny is people often like to use golden seal for her Burbank content, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to work with a highly toxic, endangered plant when you could just work with something like Oregon grape that has the same content, you know, same stain your finger yellow stuff going on there. There we go. She took a hold, so what's funny is sometimes they'll spread through their root too, so I bet soon enough this hill will be Oregon grape territory, you know. Oh yeah, look. Oh, that's cool. Coming out of the elephant looking roots over there. Look at that root system. She is not going anywhere. She held on tight during the flood. There are some places up here that were impassable with any sort of ease because of how, like this was just a wall of water coming down the hill. It was pretty bad flood. Just wiped out our entire community up here. Nice little patch of strawberries. She's happy. This canyon opened up, so she has a lot more sun here. Strawberries coming in tough. You know, sometimes they can get about as big as my thumbnail if they're real happy and they have water and sun. Watch out! He almost went off into the water. That has been crazy. Absolutely crazy. Especially because I was too broke to afford the protection camera or protection plan on the camera, let alone the protection plan for my husband. Oh, I was wondering if this place was going to be dried out enough to walk through. They came through here though and put, like, this was all like marsh, because you can see the little spring is still running down through. It looks like it's here, coming out of here. Although I think you'd have to go up, because look at the cattails. You could probably find the top of the spring up here if you really wanted to. But this was like impossible to walk through until they put all this rock here. Yeah, when that flood hit, it caused, you know, a lot of shifts to the land. And part of that was like shifting springs and stuff. People don't realize that a spring can shift. Some yellow dock coming up through the rocks. Who are you? Some sort of mint. I don't actually know all the plants around me. I think one thing that people get caught up on is thinking that they need to know everything and anything before they start. I've been at this for, well, my whole life, and making these videos publicly for what, like 13 years now, something like that. And I still don't know all the plants around me. So there's like no point where the learning stops. And I actually am comforted by that, because it would be so sad. It would be so sad if there was nothing else to, I don't know, to learn or discover or be curious about. I hope when I'm like 85, I'm like, I have no idea. Let's find out. Here's a bunch of false Solomon seal. People like to use her for like nervous system support. Sometimes I see people talking about using her for fertility, but I think she's better for nervous system. Pollen in the air. It's a cool looking nut. Reminds me of a bird skull, but it's not a bird skull. It's just, you know, a knot from a tree. My husband is so afraid to talk on the camera that he whispered, "Bless you," instead of "bless you." I'll get him there. I'll continue to harass him and poke at him till I hear words from him. But he's way far away and he doesn't know I'm whispering secrets into the microphone. I had to build this trail up too. Boy, that spring has got to be close, close, close. Still up behind that tree there. Maybe all the way up if you look at all like the ferns and stuff. Makes me thirsty. But because I don't want to shit my brains out for the next week, I'll take a drink out of my own water. If you followed all the way up and found the head of it, you'd probably be fine. But, you know, there's a lot of organic matter here, and humans, our guts aren't as strong as they used to be. And if you've never had Campylobacter, man, I wouldn't wish it on my own enemy. My son got it once, stuck his drink in a pond, you know, to keep it cold. And there must have been just enough of the bacteria around the lip of the mouth where he drank off of, you know. And it was like, it was bad because he was like, what was he, like 8 or 9 years old, something like that. And I couldn't stop the puking and I couldn't stop the shitting, and we ended up having to take him to the hospital. It took 3 more days to get it to calm down. But now I swear to God, the kid's got like a gut of iron. But he doesn't put his drinks in the river or in the pond anymore. I think it was because they ran cattle above us. You know, because that's often in cow shit, and then the little creek ran into the pond that they crossed over, you know? Because it had to have gotten into the water source in some way. It's not necessarily just like a naturally occurring bacteria. It's usually from animal shit beyond just like deer droppings or something. Little baby apple trees. Oh, look. She's gonna do her best this year to make some little baby fruit. No, she'll succeed, but she sure is trying. You can usually spot out fruit trees. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's like grapefruit, like that you can eat or is great, but because their leaves are shiny. And usually their bark is real flat. See? Shiny leaves. Didn't we cross here once to get oyster mushrooms? That water's still deep and cold. I think it just goes up from here. The thing to know is these videos that I'm starting to do are actually a pretty big deal for me. So a bunch of you might know who joined in my Q&As and stuff that I discovered that I have basically a mutation that makes me pee out of all of my carnitine. Carnitine is an amino acid that exists in your muscles, and when you waste it, your muscles basically start to disintegrate. And I've been living with this my whole life and didn't know it, but stress and everything else made it tip over its point. So I'm having to actually rebuild my muscles in like a pretty substantial way. It's like as if I was in like a cast or on bed rest, except for I was still moving around. And so being able to hike on these trails and stuff is pretty important to me. It's a pretty big improvement. But I know that trail is gonna start going way up. I know because I've been on it before. And you see it starts going away from the river and it wraps up around the mountain and it goes back down. And the thing that I have to be mindful of is that my muscles don't have the energy. Literally, they don't have the ability to burn fat like in an ATP response. And so I'll actually harm myself if I keep going. I have to be careful about it. I'm frustrated about it. I have to go really slowly. So we're gonna head back down, but then I think we'll check out a couple other like low level places that I know and that we can just kind of exist by the water for a minute. So I'm gonna head back down and I'll see you when we get there. Okay, so now we're gonna just kind of casually saunter down the river and figure out somewhere to sit and have a little talk. Maybe have a look-see at what's growing around here anyhow. Every year, especially with the flood, new stuff pushes in, so you never know. I know it's windy. I know it's windy. Find shade, even though it's windy. Let's see what's down here. I have a feeling I'm going to come back to the fireplace. I don't know why I always say fireplace instead of fire pit. My brain is all fireplace. You know what? I think so, because if we go up and around here, I think we just end up the same situation. Yeah, we'll sit on those rocks by the fire pit. Said correctly. Hopefully you can hear me through the wind. Windy today, and we're right by the river, so it tends to throw some wind. Half tempted. You know what? Come on. We can hear the river. There's Yarrow. She's coming in. Because I want to be able to have a conversation, but also not be blinded by the sun. Sit here in this berm. Okay. Oh. So, I don't know if you can even see me from that far away, can they? Yeah? Okay. So, new camera, all that type of stuff. Did you know that if you just hear water, it regulates your nervous system? And that's so crazy to me, that people pay huge amounts of money for gadgets, medications, routines, to try to replace what nature already has present for us for free. And it's not even like woo-woo type stuff, like this is science. So the thing is, when your body hears, feels, senses running water, your nervous system says, we're safe. Now, from a scientific perspective, if you think about it this way, what's happening is, where did your ancestors likely settle? Where do you see towns built by? There's always some sort of water source, lake, pond, creek, river, spring, something. There had to be water. Now, there's like the hardcore humans that are like, we live in the middle of like the desert and we have to dig for water, and that's a reality too, but they probably felt pretty safe once they found water, right? Water is life became a catchy slogan during a time where people needed to pay attention to what was happening to water. But the truth is, water was and is life for ourselves and our ancestors. But because of that, being around the sound of it makes you feel calm. Now, I recently had a lady, when I had talked about this before, she said actually being around water, like the sound of it gives me a panic attack. And I mentioned to her that what's likely happening is that your parasympathetic nervous system is in such overdrive that when you start to feel calm, it gives you a panic attack. And that's a real thing, folks. Like if you are constantly under stress, if you're living with like severe dysregulation, if you do something to feel calm, it will make you feel extremely uncomfortable because your body has always been in fight, flight, freeze mode, right? And she was like, oh, that's totally accurate to like what I'm experiencing. But I also acknowledge that in our current reality, we don't all have the ability to like sit romantically next to a river, right? We don't all have the ability to just spend time on the land and outside. While it's always best if you can try to put some time in your week to even just go for a walk along a river or something like that, you do have other options. Now, your brain is smart. So unfortunately, just playing the sound of water has been shown not to be as effective, right? Because there's little nuances and things there that you can't necessarily pick up on. But what you can do is get yourself a water fountain. Think about like when you're in like some sort of doctor's office or some sort of like inside setting where you're having to wait for something and there's a water fountain. It's so calming. It's so calming, right? Well, because your body's like, this is safe. I have my resource. So even if you can't get out, maybe you're disabled and you can't walk down to the river, buy yourself a water fountain. For inside your house. You could have it outside as well, but you can get medium-sized ones that are meant to be inside. I would say get something that's, listen to the audio of it. Like if people are like giving reviews of it, listen to the audio of it to where you actually can hear how loud it is. You want it to be loud enough that you're hearing it not just like a trickle. You don't want it to just sound like your faucet running. You want to look for something that sounds like water running over rocks, and that will really help your nervous system. Try putting it in your bedroom if you have a hard time sleeping. Putting it where you work, anywhere that you're like super stressed out at. That's going to be the place that you want to put it the most, right? But ultimately, if we can try to get out here and we can try to get on the land, little bits in time. Like I'm super stressed out right now. I don't want you guys to think that I live like some super romantic life. I live as a small business owner in a time of essentially a recession, right? And it's all we do for a living. So, you know, we're under a lot of stress, but I know that I have to get out here. even if it's to make these videos, even if it's still under the guise of like helping other people. Like, I know that I need to smell this poplar, and I need to hear that water, and I need to feel this ground, and I need to see the million different colors of green to make my brain happy and see where I'm at and finally have enough stimulation that it's content, right? Because I don't get that in a man-made artificial setting. I know that I have to do it here and there whenever I'm able. You know, and it all adds up, and it makes a big difference. And you are smart enough. You are smart enough to get out there, to find a way, even if it's just putting your feet in the grass near your apartment, something. Even if you're like, oh, there's, you know, dog pee everywhere. But I mean, like, you've just got to find a way to go outside. And even if it's just sitting in the sun and you're surrounded by concrete, just find a way out, you know? Listen to that wind. That is like my favoriteest thing. Especially the poplar leaves, because they dance in that wind, you know? One of my favorite memories from being a kid is like when the Chinook winds would come here in like February. And that's where like we're in the middle of like a deep winter, but these warm winds come. And I have like these memories of like just standing there on the dirt road hill next to my folks' house, and just like the sound of the wind and like feeling how warm it was on my skin. The smell that it brought, you know, it was like the first hint of spring. And I think I might like the sound of wind better than the sound of water, but it's hard to have real wind in the house. I could have a fan, certainly, but it's not quite the same, you know? And that always kind of reminded me of the ocean, actually. Like, if you think about it, like, all the wind is being, like, moved by ocean currents. And if you're up there in the pine trees and you hear it, it's like the sound of the ocean. But, yeah, just getting out here regulates your nervous system. It does. And it doesn't have to be big and vast. It can just be a park. It can just be somewhere that you have access to. It can just be 20 minutes. It all adds up. And you not only are smart enough, but you like deserve this. Like, every human deserves this. It's sad that it's something that we have to strive for because we've been so disconnected. And reconnection will be hard because we're told that, you know, oh, it's dangerous sitting here. What about the ticks? What about the snakes? You should see my comment section. You should see how much people are going to freak out about me doing anything in nature. It happens all the time. And I'm not saying that we can't take precautions and things and that know your individual environment, but yeah, the disconnect is pretty serious and it's making us sick. And we don't have to spend money to fix it, really. But yeah, so you can do this. You can get out here and then you can go home and eat some lunch because I'm hungry. So that's what I'm gonna do. You know, we spent some time out here. I took some time to wind down, and maybe next time I'll bring a lunch with me. But you know, we just did a short little trip today because I just need it out. You also don't have to feel like you have to have everything planned out. Not everything has to be like, oh, what's exactly going to happen, when it's going to happen, do I have a lunch packed? You could just go and wing it. Just be a human. Just play it by ear. So, if you happen to like my videos, if you're enjoying spending time in nature with me or learning from me or anything that you're enjoying with my channel, and you'd like to support my capacity to exist and to keep making this content, I don't even like calling it content, that feels dirty, but to keep showing you my world, consider becoming a member. It's just a way to throw me a couple bucks a month. You can literally join for 99 cents. There's nothing hidden behind a paywall. You do get early access to videos as I'm able to upload them. You do get a members only Q&A, you know, if you're interested in talking to me about health and stuff like that. But if you can't afford to, I don't want you to worry about it. You'll still always have access to all of this. And if you can't do that, or even if you can, what's really helpful and really impactful is to make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Sharing is huge, because it helps other people realize that they are smart enough to do this, that they deserve to have a connection with the land, and that they can take their health back one moment at a time, one connection at a time, one, you know, plant at a time. And it really helps get my work out there. So it's much appreciated. So thanks so much for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.